This is NDTV, and you're watching Classics.
Hello and welcome to the Unstoppable Indians. Every week we take a journey into the life of an outstanding Indian, a person whose talent, acumen or moral example is transforming India. The best, the finest from every field join me, Manvi Dhillon, on this show to share their life story, their journey to success, some of the knocks along the way, what made them get up, keep going, what makes them an unstoppable Indian. My guest today is one of India's most dynamic business leaders. He's bold, he's often changed the rules of the game. He thinks big and then he executes vigorously. He's Anand Mahindra, Vice Chairman and Managing Director of Mahindra Mahindra. Anand, great to have you on the Unstoppable Indians.
Pleasure to be here.
I could think of many descriptions for M&M, but I want to hear it from you, your own words. Today, this point in time, this moment, what does M&M stand for in your eyes?
You know, we have a kind of metaphor within the company that the story of Mahindra is the story of India, and sometimes we like to say vice versa. But the metaphor is more apt than most people would think, because we were conceived around the same time the country was conceived, in 1945, just 2 years before independence. And the motivations that drove the founders of the group to start the company were the same motivations that drove the pioneers of the freedom movement, to really unshackle India, to prove that we were second to none in the world, that with a dose and injection of education and entrepreneurship, we could be in the front ranks of the world. And then, like India, there was a flurry of entrepreneurial activity. The company grew substantially through alliances, reaching out in the world. And then come 60s, and when India retreated into its socialist shell, so did we. We had a license to produce vehicles. It was a cozy environment. There was no reason to break the rules at that point in time, and you weren't allowed to anyway. And so we went to sleep for a while. And then in 91, when India ran out of money and was provoked to start the reforms, ironically, there was a major recession in the automotive industry in India too. And essentially, M&M had to reinvent itself. And then began the long journey of productivity improvements, re-engineering, reinvention of the company and itself, just as the country was doing the same. So where is M&M today? Funnily enough, I think the metaphor still holds. We are where India is. We were a fast bullet train. That was what India was turning into. And suddenly you find you have to go a little slow. There's a bend around the road, you have to negotiate, and it's confusing to turn into a freight train suddenly. But I think, like the country, M&M too is like a coiled spring, or maybe I should use a metaphor from the automotive world. You have regenerative brakes, that when you brake, you store energy, and then you use it again in an environmentally friendly manner. In the same way, I think the brakes that are being caused to India and to M&M just in its growth path are brakes which are going to allow us to store energy. And like the coiled spring, I think we're just waiting for the time when we can go back to our normal growth path, just as India plans to go back to its 9% growth path. So that's where we are. I know I've answered in a broader sense than you wanted, but that's the image I have of M&M.
And that's exactly what I intended. You know, I'm going to talk about the uncertainty in a bit, but at a personal level, do you get sometimes amazed by how much M&M has changed in your professional life?
It is humbling when you look at that. But then aren't we all amazed at how India has changed? When you look back, and again, I'm sorry, I'm flogging the metaphor here, but that is what is exciting about India today. Why I came back in the first place after doing my MBA. I think it's why you're here in India. People like you have options globally. Why are you here? You're here because the speed of change is breathtaking, and it happens in your lifetime. And frankly, when you go home the end of the day in India, I think you feel a lot better than you would if you were in some affluent country and had simply earned more money to buy a BMW. You know, there is a huge reward in being here, and a lot of that comes from the transformation that is taking place before our very eyes.
You know, this is a vast organization, but is there one big idea out there that you've set for M&M?
I'd like to think there are many big ideas. We certainly don't have any impoverishment of ideas at M&M. There are two big things, if you will, that occupy my mind right now. One of them has to do with the structure of the group. back in 91, we changed the architecture of the group, moved to the sectorization, as we called it. When I kicked myself upstairs, my uncle and I kicked ourselves upstairs and really built a very empowered structure that I think has led to the depth of management that we have today. In 97, once again, we did an addendum to that, a refinement. And I think the time has come for a re-architecting of some kind. But it's about continuity and change, and that has to do with now creating a second level of management. I think, I'm 53, and
Very young.
And I joined the board at 36, and we all like to think we're young, but I think it's time to build an even more youthful M&M. So what I'm contemplating will broaden the management depth at M&M, bring it an even more youthful look than it has today. And that's one part of the architecture. The second part has to do with enhancing a competence M&M's built over the last few years, and that is of incubating businesses. And I'm looking at ways in which we can institutionalize that. I don't want to use the word private equity because that's obviously fallen into disrepute in the last year or so. But I believe there's a partnership approach that M&M has, which is unique, a partnership approach that brings competencies to ideas, to entrepreneurial notions. And I'm working on something. It's a black box right now, and I don't want to betray any more than that, but that's the big structural change that I think you'll see. As far as specific businesses are concerned, there's nothing that we haven't revealed before, but we've been in all areas of transport, and as you know, we've gotten into the two-wheeler business, which we want to start. But we are also into aerospace in a small way, and I think that's going to be manufacturing and engineering of aircraft is, to me, a natural extension of Mahindra's franchise.
I want to talk about the leadership, because the kind of leadership you've built within M&M, it's the envy of a number of companies.
That's very nice of you to say that.
In corporate India. But tell me, as a manager, is Anand Mahindra as unflappable as he looks to me every time I see him? What kind of manager, in honest terms, are you really within the office?
You don't, this is an age-old question. To what extent do you need to show aggression, whether it's with subordinates or competitors or whoever else? I inherited, or learnt rather, from my late father, Harish Mahindra, I hope, a quality of humility that he possessed in spades. And I also, as a student, was a socialist, was a member of the Communist Party. Now, when you put together some kind of learned humility and a humanism, if we don't call it socialism, you cannot but be a collaborative manager. You cannot believe that you will get more out of people by screaming at them. I think people get motivated by wanting to earn your respect and not earn your scorn. That's very powerful. That's far more powerful than losing your temper. So does it come naturally, or do you have to remind yourself that that's the type of leader you'd like to be? I think it's a bit of both. I'm human. My wife has forbidden me from driving because I'm very prone to road rage. When I see bad drivers, I'm prone to get into a fight on the road. So I have my human side to me. But I've never seen that at the workplace as being valuable. And happily, when you look at all the commentaries on the newly minted iconic leader of the free world, Barack Obama, he's called No Drama Obama, isn't he?
Yes.
And for a while, there was a whole lot of criticism that the man doesn't seem to lose control, has emotion, but it's taken him to the peak of the largest country in the world. So I think I'll stick with my model for some more time.
Rewinding over your career, again, want to really know, has there been a moment, a business decision, and we've talked about, how this has been an exciting journey, but has there been a moment where you took one path and then kind of sweated right till the very end? Maybe there was a happy ending, maybe there wasn't, but has there been a moment like that?
Well, yes, and I think for people who followed our company, they know that the reflexive answer to that is usually the Scorpio. That did I sweat? Yes, because it was the largest investment ever. I've said very often, ad nauseum, that I didn't bet the company, but I certainly bet my career on that. And was I sweating to the end? Yes. But I sweated for much longer than what people would have thought was the end. You'd think the end was when it started selling and it did well. That wasn't the end. Because when you have a product like that, you continue to sweat. And I sweat even today when you have the Scorpio Refresh, you have the Scorpio Automatic, because building a customer relationship is an ongoing enterprise. So what I learned from the Scorpio is that, you know, it's never going to be about mountain peaks and then suddenly you exhale and then you don't have to sweat. It's best, neither is it best to be completely objective and not to get moved by these things. I think that's unexciting. But I prefer to imagine the picture as a series of oscillations where every day brings some highs, some lows, but then it's ultimately a continuum. And that to me is the prevailing mindset I'd like to have, that there's nothing that I'll really feel, oh my God, I sweated till the end, now it's okay. It'll never be like that. Life is always going to bring things that will make you sweat.
And you know, that's something all of us can identify with. I mean,
absolutely.